Hey leaders, welcome to the People Power Project podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Carey, CEO of Morgan Carey Consulting Solutions, Chief HR Strategist, and advocate for building better workplaces. This podcast is all about empowering the leader in you, whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or a business owner, to build better, safer, and more enjoyable work environments. Together, we'll reinvent HR and develop outstanding leadership by promoting accountability and exploring ways to foster growth for the busy business leader. Are you thinking about a career in HR, or maybe you're already in HR and you're just looking to level up? Are you trying to get the HR job, but every time you apply, they're looking for you to already have HR experience, but you're trying to get the job to get HR experience? Well, the MCCS People Power Project Circle is going to be your go-to resource for HR career growth. So whether you're transitioning into HR or you're already in HR and you just want to improve your expertise, we're going to provide mentorship, career coaching, real-world HR solutions to help you navigate the path and get the experience that you need, things that you can use to get your next job. So don't just dream about your HR career, build it just like I did. Just visit morgancareyconsulting.com and learn more about joining the community today. Joining the community is free, so go ahead and get to it. All right, welcome back, y'all. Welcome to the People Power Project podcast. Today, I'm so excited because it's just me. You just get me for this very special bonus episode. And if you've been hanging out with me so far, you know that we've been having some real conversations about leadership management in the workplace. And we've been talking about workplace dynamics, leadership, power, and personal growth. And the more I reflect on these topics, I notice that there is a thread, right? So we have talked about ways to show up in the workplace, how things in the workplace are affecting us at home and how home is affecting us in the workplace, how to build your success, maybe even knowing how to transition out of a position, knowing when it's time to do something different and you build yourself to win. We've talked about, the return to office mandates and coming back to an office where you don't really know anybody. You've never really worked in person with your supervisors, and now you got to figure this out. I have noticed that in the figuring out, all of this comes down to, or there's a common thread here, and it requires emotional intelligence. So whether we're talking about the return to office mandates, dealing with bad managers, holding managers accountable, holding yourself accountable, I feel like there is one common denominator. And I already said it, the emotional intelligence. So today we're just going to do a quick rundown of all the things that we've talked about and why all of this comes down to your EQ. I know you've heard of IQ, right? It's a little different, your EQ. Your EQ, you can develop that. We can get better. And this isn't a new term. It's been around for a while, but I think it's coming up more often now. And a lot of times I hear people talking about it in regard to relationships, friendships, relationships at home, dating relationships, husbands, wives. They're talking about emotional intelligence. But I think that this is super important at work as well. Because listen, I really believe if you don't have a high EQ, leadership is not for you. And we have a lot of managers and leaders and business owners that don't have a high EQ. And the good news is you can work on it. You can get there. Okay. So let's get to it. First, let's do this recap that I said we were going to do. So episode 1, we were talking about put your manager on a PIP. I just hit y'all, right? I didn't even announce that I was going to have a podcast. I didn't tell y'all what the podcast was about, with the exception of telling you the little intro in the beginning. Hey, leaders, welcome to the People Power Project podcast. Other than that, I didn't tell you what this podcast was going to really be about. I just hit you straight up with putting your manager on a PIP. That episode resonated with a few of y'all, and it was super fun because people were like, what? How am I going to put my manager on a PIP? But we talked about how you could do this. Even now, you can do this. It may not look exactly like them putting you on a PIP, but if you know it's time for you to transition out of this job, or you think it might be time for you to transition out of your job because you have a poor manager or you're not getting along with your manager, putting them on a PIP in your own little process and your little folder at work and just following the steps may tell you at the end, time for me to go, right? Again, this was a fun one. Came in hot out the gate talking about put your manager on a PIP. If that just from here sounds like it will resonate with you, go back and listen to it and tell me what you think. Then on episode 2, we talked about radical candor. This is one of my favorite episodes so far. And the reviews have been great on this one because they're like, man, I didn't even think about the techniques of holding someone accountable in this way and how effective it would make me as a manager to know how to do this right. And so radical candor is talking about caring personally and challenging directly. And we were talking about the book, Radical Candor. We tackled this idea of being direct and how this is going to help you be a better manager, because if you can't be honest, you're really not setting your people up for success. Now, episode 3, we dived into talking to my brother. This one was great. It was Jason Carey, Built to Win, Leadership Growth, and Chasing Your Dreams. We had a wonderful conversation with him. He was my very first guest on the show, and we've been rocking with guests since then, but he kicked it off for us. Jason talked about how it was moving from corporate to building his dream and how he had to be able to hold himself accountable. And now that he has a team working for and with him, now he holds other people accountable. And so we were just talking about the importance of accountability in his dynamic perspective on resilience, adaptability, and the mindset shift that was required to do what he did. So go ahead and listen to that very special episode, because that one is near and dear to me, and it's going to be that way forever and ever, of course, because it's my brother. Episode 4, we talked about, I don't know them, returning to the office mandates. We talked to my previous supervisor, one of my previous supervisors who I admire so much, who taught me a lot about being a supervisor. And she helped us talk about the disconnect between leaders and employees as they're coming back to the office. Some of them were hired to be completely remote. They thought they were going to be completely remote, but then now they got to go back to the office 5 days a week. And we talked about some strategies that could make this better if you can make some adjustments to how you bring people back into the office. I think we might be a little bit past that now. Now we're adjusting because it's already happened. People are in the office. But that was a great, great conversation. People low on emotional intelligence, they're not going to be tuned in how to make something like this work. Any type of big change, they're just going to be like, coming in hot, let's do it. You either deal with it or you don't. But someone with high emotional intelligence, which is key when you're taking your people through these kinds of changes, is to exercise some understanding, right? And that understanding is going to come from empathy. And empathy is a huge component of emotional intelligence. Episode 5, clap back at the great detachment. We talked about using theater for employee engagement, because we're in a time now where people are disengaged at work. They are coming to work and they're staying at these jobs because they don't feel like they can find another job, but that just means they're not engaged in the job that they're supposed to be doing. Or they just feel like I don't even know if they want to leave. It's just they may be in a period of time where this sucks. I really don't want to be here. And maybe as a leader, you might want to notice that and think about, how can I get these people re-engaged here while I have them? Well, we talked to Jesse Puddles, right? And this was a great episode, so go listen to it. We talked about how you can bring life back to employee engagement. This was a really unique way to do it. And so if you missed that episode, go check it out. Listen to Jesse, call Jesse, message Jesse. He's going to get your people back. He's going to get your people back engaged, and it's going to be fun while doing it. Episode 6, we talked about ego versus excellence. This was all about how insecurity kills leadership. And so if you're too caught up in your ego, you really can't grow. And I don't think I need to make the correlation between why being caught up in your ego and being insecure really requires you to tap in a better level of emotional intelligence. Episode 7, Too Much for Them, the struggle of being a Black woman in power. This was also really fun. It was really fun, but it was a really real conversation. It was deep. We talked about how Black women in leadership often have to manage perception in ways that others don't. So when they're at work, they have to, they're looked at a certain way. And then when they come home, it's the same. It's like, I can't show up the way I need to show up at home, but I also can't show up the way I need to show up at work. And it's all because of how people are perceiving me. And there may be a struggle there, which causes feelings of isolation, feelings of disconnect, which is going to show up when you're trying to lead, when you're trying to be a good contributor, manager, leader at work. These issues that you're encountering, they show up there too, because you are the same person at home that you are at work. Now, do you act the same? I get a little pushback when I say this. I'm the same person at work that I am at home. I remember one time I was talking to this guy and we were having a conversation. I think the conversation might have been a little intense. And he knew what I did for a living. And the way I was talking was probably it was probably clear and precise, kind of way that I would probably present information at work. And I just remember him saying, this is not work. You don't handle things here like you do at work. I kind of took issue with that because I don't always know how to be a totally different person from one conversation to the next, right? Because I'm still Morgan. I'm still the same person. So I may not act the exact same at work that I do at home, but you're going to get the same person. And if that is not accepted in both places, it can feel so isolating, like you don't fit anywhere and you really don't know what to do. And so we were talking about that on that episode 7. Episode 8, we talked about from contributor to CEO. We talked to beautiful Sharice from Prism Sound and Sauna and Sound in Richmond. And she talked about bringing love to the workplace and loving what she does and wanting her customers and clients to feel the love just when they walk in. And I'm telling you, if you haven't listened to that episode, it's a treat. Sharice is going to talk about how she moved from being a contributor, having a 9-to-5 job, and how she made that move on over to being a CEO and building the kind of business that she wanted to build with her family. Doing something like that, especially if you're going to be very purposeful about bringing love into the workplace, bringing love into your business, whether it's your business or one you manage for someone else, that is going to take a high level of emotional intelligence as well. Episode 9, do you cook? This is the one we just finished doing. It just aired. This episode is called Do You Cook? The question that will get you canceled on day one. I remember when I told somebody that I was going to do this episode and this was the title, they were like, I thought you have a leadership podcast. What does that have to do with being a leader? I love that it raised that question because it was really a great title to get people thinking. And it was really it was real. I mean, it was fun, but it was real because I do get that question a lot in the dating world. And the question annoys me. I think I made it clear on the podcast. And it doesn't annoy me because I can't cook. It annoys me, for one, I don't like to cook, but it is also not the number one thing on my list to talk about when I first meet someone. And it sounds like an old school stereotype expectation of a woman. And so I think that that's why that gets on my nerves. And me and Megan, my soror and line sister, were talking about this, and we really dug into how traditional gender roles affect women in leadership. And it takes a level of emotional intelligence and relationships and leadership in order to understand why that question might be a little bit triggering. Okay. And coming up next, we're going to have this week talking about balancing motherhood and ambition. So y'all stay tuned in because you all are going to get privy to the conversation between me and my best friend of over 20 years. You all are going to listen to us interact. I wonder if it sounds different than my other podcast guests or my other podcast conversations, because you might get to hear me showing up different, right? But being the same person. And that's an example of what I just said, right? I'm the same person. Wherever I show up, I just might act differently. You might get firsthand experience watching that when you hear me talking to my friend LaFawn. So that's the next episode. Make sure y'all tune in. But when you look at all these episodes, you will see they all connect in some way. They're not really random. They might seem like random topics, but they're really conversations about how people navigate power, relationships, and leadership. And the common theme, I really believe through all of them, is emotional intelligence. Now, let's get to the real question that I want to talk about here is, how do you know if you're a leader with low emotional intelligence or if you're a leader with high emotional intelligence? Because the truth is a lot of people, I think, they think they're good leaders. They think they have high EQ. So they might be listening to this episode like, oh, she's not talking to me. And they may even have clicked off of this episode by now. But if you're still here, this is for you, right? Because you may be managing tasks and not leading people, right? You may be showing up every day, not using your emotional intelligence, right? And or not doing it well, okay? So here are some red flags that you might have low EQ, right? You take things personally all the time. Have you ever worked with somebody that takes things personally, or are you that person, right? Really think about these things as I'm telling you, right? It's going to take you to move your ego aside, right? It's just nobody's in the room with you. You don't have, and if they are, just wiggle your pinky, right? So they can't see. If that is you, raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand. Go ahead and raise your hand, because the first thing to do is to admit it to yourself. If every piece of feedback feels like an attack, your EQ needs some work. Your EQ needs some work. Okay, you struggle with difficult conversations. You either avoid them or you feel really, really, really uncomfortable with them. If you are planning to be a leader, manager, CEO, business owner, and even an individual contributor, you are going to have to get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. And if you struggle with them, your EQ probably needs some work. Okay, you don't know how your emotions affect others. I'm going to say that again. A red flag that says you have low EQ is that you don't know how your emotions affect others. People walk on eggshells around you. People are afraid to talk with you. People don't know what your next move is going to be. They're just worried about, maybe today might be the day that he blows up at me, right? So I'm going to just stay over here. If you've ever heard anybody say that to you, or you notice that people have a hard time being around you, you may be struggling with low EQ. You can't read the room. Right? So if you can't read the room, you didn't notice what I just said, right? So maybe you don't know. So maybe take some inventory, because if people just disengage from you, or they're upset, or they're unmotivated, and you don't pick up on it. But I'm wondering how you're going to know that if you don't pick up on it. Maybe, you might need to get yourself an accountability person. Maybe you're the friend listening to this that knows a person like this, and you might just need to slide them this episode. Maybe that's how they're going to know. But either way, that's the EQ problem. All right, you micromanage. You micromanage because the only standard that's good standard is your standard, okay? If you're doing that, then you need to be working on your EQ. And then you shut down when things get tough. Woo, this used to be me, right? And I'm being 100% transparent, I'm still working on it, because one of the things, when I feel like my tolerance is being tested, or I just don't want to, then I shut down. It's easier for me to do that. And a high EQ leader can handle pressure without like falling apart and snapping at people. So I think one of the reasons why I shut down, or historically have shut down, is because I'm worried about falling apart and snapping on people. So if I shut down, at least you can't say that I snapped on you. At least you can't say that I fell apart in front of you, right? So my best bet is to shut down. But if you're doing that, just want you to know it's a sign of lower EQ, and you need to work on it. Okay. You make decisions based on ego, not data or people's needs. Remember our episode on ego and how it messes with your security. If your leadership is all about you and not the mission of what it is you're trying to do, that's a problem. It's all about what you want to see happen, all about what you need, all about what resonates with only you. That's a problem, right? You should not be the center of everything. And if you are, and if that sounds familiar, then your EQ may be a little low. But guess what? I just said a lot of red flags. All is not lost. All is not lost, because like I said, EQ can be worked on. You can work on this. But we need to talk about how to fix it. And you need to be able to see yourself in those. Maybe not all of those things apply to you, right? Maybe one or two or whatever. But I would suggest, if you're trying to stay in a management space, if you're trying to build your own business, if you're trying to become an HR person, right? This is super imperative. And I would probably say even more so if you're trying to be an HR person. If any of those red flags apply to you, get to work. Get to work. Get to work. Because you can improve your EQ. You're not stuck where you are. But you just have to be able to admit that you are there. And here's the good news. You're listening to a podcast where nobody can see you, and you don't even have to admit it out loud. Just admit it to yourself and start working on it. Okay? Here are some things you can start doing today, because I don't like to give you the what without the how. I do not like to give you the what without the how. And I love to leave you with some actionable tips you can start doing right now. Practice self-awareness. Get really self-aware. There's some exercises that you can do to help yourself with self-awareness. You need to start noticing how you act in stressful situations. Don't try to manage it right away. Just notice. Just sit back and let it happen. Notice what you did. Even if you got to write it down, notice what you did and see how that works out for you. What is that? What did you do? Give yourself some feedback. Did you get defensive? Did you shut down? The more you notice your patterns, the more control you will have over yourself and the more aware you will become. Get comfortable with feedback. Ask for it. One of the ways you can get comfortable with feedback is to ask somebody for it and embrace yourself for impact. But many of us are so scared for somebody to say something negative about us that we're scared to even ask. And then if somebody volunteers the feedback that may help you, now we're ready to bite their head off. Well, so you can alleviate the need to bite somebody's head off, or you're worried because they're giving you unsolicited advice. Beat them to the punch. Get really good with getting feedback and ask for it. Ask people you trust, though. Don't walk around asking people that are just trying to be haters and hurt your feelings and all of that. You got to be careful who you ask. Ask people that you know, love, and trust. Ask, how do I show up as a leader? How do I, even if it's not at work, maybe start at home. How do I show up every day and be ready for what they're going to say? Because remember, you trust these people. You trust them. You trust that they're not going to just be doing and saying things to hurt you. So you have to be ready to hear what they're going to say. Actually listen to what they have to offer. Pause before reacting. This is a great part that you can do this part even after the exercise that I just said, where I say ask them. Now I say brace yourself for impact, right? So pause, listen really well. When emotions run high, if you feel something bubbling up when somebody's giving you some feedback, just resist the urge to talk about all the things that they're doing wrong, right? Because this conversation is about you. When emotions run high, you want to give yourself 5 seconds before responding. So even outside of asking for feedback, when you're in a high stress, high stakes situation, just slow down and take in whatever it is that they're saying. Those 5 seconds can really save a conversation, and it can help you process before you react or before you respond, because I'm a large supporter of responding instead of reacting. Work on your empathy. That's the next one. Try to understand what your employees, peers, family members, even your boss is going through before you judge them. If you listen to some of my episodes, I can't remember exactly which episode, but we were talking about this. Realizing that the people that are at work with you, the people that are home with you, the people that you're running into in the street, everywhere, they're just people. Everybody's dealing with something. You know, it's not just you. You're not the only one coming to work with burdens. Something may have happened with someone's kid. Now, I'm not saying you're responsible for the burdens of other people. I'm just saying that it would behoove you to understand. Either you want to show up better or you don't. You can say, well, they should be able to manage their feelings and leave it at the door. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe you feel like that's true. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this whole leave everything at the door, because this is a whole person. That's not always possible, right? And I also don't believe you should be dealing in shoulds and shouldn'ts, okay? Just deal in the reality. The reality is that person may be carrying something with them that day. And if you just learn to understand that and practice a little bit empathy, you'll get a little further with your emotional intelligence. The last thing I'm going to say here with the tips on how you develop your emotional intelligence is to invest in some emotional intelligence training. We do training for everything else, right? Whenever you want to learn something, you do training, right? There is also emotional intelligence training. You don't have to pay some big ticket price for emotional intelligence training. I mean, if you got it, go ahead and get it, right? But there are books. Do you know people write stories and experience and lessons in books and people don't read them? It's a shame. You can get a book for $13, $14, read your books, take your courses, get yourself a coach. Because listen, the EQ is a skill, and like any skill, you are going to have to build it. But I'm telling you, you're going to be a better manager for it. You're going to be a better manager. You're going to build better teams, and you're going to build better workplaces. So here's the bottom line, y'all. You cannot be a great leader without high emotional intelligence. This is why we have so many people on social media, posts and things talking about how awful managers are. And it's usually the really good managers that are quiet. And so, you know how people always post the bad reviews, right? If you buy something and you don't like it, you're so quick to put a bad review. Well, recently I said to myself that I am going to really make an effort to put good reviews, because everybody puts bad reviews. And so when people see bad reviews, that's all they believe. It's the same thing with people, with managers and HR today. If you go on social media, there's so much bashing about managers and bad HR and things like that. But there's a whole bunch of good people and good HR departments, good managers, good coworkers. But you don't hear about them because people aren't shouting that from the rooftops, and people don't always want to hear the good stuff, right? But if you work on your emotional intelligence, you could work on being a great leader, and whether somebody reviews you or not, you are in a space where you are creating a better workplace from right where you stand. You can fake it for a while to get in the door, to talk about all the things you're an expert at in the content area of your job. But at the end of the day, eventually the cracks will show. So if this episode is hitting home for you, I'm going to challenge you to do some self-reflection. Where do you need to improve? Just ask yourself that question and write it down. I have learned that when you write things down, it's more of a chance of you either working on it or more of a chance of that thing happening. So where do you need to improve? What's the one thing you can start doing right now today? You don't need to spend any money. You don't need to ask anybody. All you need to do is listen to this podcast and then start doing it. What is one thing you can use that technique to do? I'm not saying don't buy anything. I'm just saying, what is the thing you could do right now when this podcast ends? What can you do to start building your EQ right there with what you have? Think about it. And I want to thank you so much for spending your time tuning into this podcast. I have loved talking to you by myself today. If you ever want to start a podcast or have ever wanted to start a podcast and you just don't know where to start, but maybe you already have a podcast and you want to grow it, I'm going to tell you about this program that I am in, and I absolutely love this program. It's called the My 7-Figure Podcast. They can help you with these things. They can help you start your podcast, and they can help you with information to start it, and they can help you with information to continue to build it. You just got to become a part of the community. That's your job, right? My 7-Figure Podcast has helped me so much. You will get access to step-by-step courses. You will get a supportive community. The one thing that I like the most about this community, the course is great, and the live Wednesdays are great. I love that. But y'all, the live Fridays, my favorite part. You get a live Q&A. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. They are talking about things that are really going to help you grow. So listen, don't just take it from me. Go ahead and look it up. I'm going to put the link in the show description, whether you're just getting started to get your podcast going or you're already working on your podcast and you want to take it to the next level. This is your chance to make podcasting work for you. I promise you that you're going to love this podcast group. Use the link in the show description and sign up today. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a coworker, or even your manager. And don't forget to subscribe to the People Power Project podcast wherever you get your podcasts for more inspiring and actionable episodes. Follow me on Instagram at Morgan_Carey Consulting and on LinkedIn under Morgan Carey. And tag me with your thoughts using hashtag People Power Project Podcast. And remember, people-empowered workspaces are simply the best workplaces. I'll see you in a few days.